Hi, I'm Kevin Harrington, an original shark from Shark Tank. Capital Gains Tax Solutions offers a way to preserve capital gains tax and multiply wealth, granting you the invaluable freedom to live life on your own terms. And joining me today is the CEO, Brett Swarts. Brett, thanks for being here today.
Kevin, thanks for having me.
Awesome having you. Now, in your own words, what does Capital Gains Tax Solutions actually offer those that are out there?
Absolutely. So we unlock capital to be invested into families, communities when exiting highly appreciated assets. So these are multi-million dollar assets that have huge capital gains taxes.
Right.
And most people, they feel trapped by that. They feel trapped by some of the older strategies that are just that, Kevin. They're strategies versus transformational exit planning, where you have freedom and flexibility with the wealth.
Is there a main driver for you in creating this new business?
Growing up in California, sometimes they call it Taxifornia. There's a lot of taxes and a lot of challenges.
Oh yeah.
My mom and my dad, we would build houses growing up, and we found that the American dream was the ability to, build wealth on your own terms in a sense. But when you exit, there was high tax. So they achieved the American dream with a lot of wealth, but what happened was then they got divorced, and we saw the foundation of wealth kind of come in between families. So at a early age, my mom and dad, when they got divorced, my mom, let's just say she didn't have as much child support as she could have, right?
Right.
My dad taught us how to work hard, be entrepreneurial, but we lived with my mom most of the time, and I found how wealth can separate families. And so at a young age, I knew that I wanted to make a lot of money so that I could keep a lot of margin with wealth and help families not feel trapped when they go to exit assets.
That makes total sense. So you experienced this yourself, and so now you want to help those that are out there. And so what differentiates what you do at Capital Gains versus other consultant advisors that are in this industry?
I think it's the key on something called the Deferred Sales Trust. We niche focus on a strategy that we believe has the opportunity to not only transform on the $84 trillion that's transferring from the baby boomers in the next 20 years, but also the ability to have flexibility with that. It's not just the strategy, it's the team to execute as you imagine on a business plan. So when you know how to execute on certain strategies, it makes all the difference. Now we also have we're proficient at 1031 exchanges, Delaware statutory trust, and other tax deferral strategies. The next thing is eliminating estate tax. Most folks have ways to defer cap gains tax, but we can also eliminate estate tax. And when you can do that in a flexible way, Kevin, it creates transformation for families.
Okay, so you mentioned quite a few things there, estate taxes, but there was something I want to go back to, the Deferred Sales Trust. Who is an ideal candidate for that? And exactly what is that again?
Yeah, and so the ideal candidate would be for someone who's selling any asset of any kind. It could be public or private stock. It could be investment real estate, primary homes. It could be a cryptocurrency, and have $1 million gain and $1 million net proceeds. So it's got to be large enough that them to be able to defer that tax up to 100% of the capital gains taxes or eliminate the estate tax. So if you have those assets and you're looking to sell, you're an ideal candidate. Now, a deferred sales trust is just an installment sale, Kevin. You would note it as like a seller carryback. If you own this hotel we're in right now, the ability to defer the tax if you could carry paper for a buyer. The difference is that we couple that with a trust, and when we do that and the way that we execute the strategy, it gives you some flexibility, gives you that liquidity, gives you that tax deferral, and gives you that optimal timing, which we think makes all the difference in our world right now. So the other part of transformation with some of these deal stories that I like to mention is one with Warren and Catherine. And they first started out buying a duplex in Manhattan Beach, and they've done what's called the 1031 exchanges for many years. And they ended up buying an apartment complex, Kevin, in Sacramento. And they're looking at their NOI. Their NOI was about $120,000. And they're considering not just their NOI on their return on investment, but the return on their time. You see, they had kids later in life. And their two daughters are now twin daughters. They're 10 years old. And Warren's finding himself driving 4 or 5 hours back and forth to the property on the weekends. And it's taking up a huge amount of his time. And so he's going, you know what? If there's an opportunity to sell, defer the tax, and gain what we call the 12 plus freedoms with the Deferred Sales Trust, for the most important one for him, it was time. He no longer had to do the toilets, the trash, the liabilities. And so I asked him the question. I said, Warren, what was the biggest thing that the Deferred Sales Trust did for you? He said, you know what, Brett? I traded the toilets, the trash, and the termites for the other two T's, my twin daughters. And for us, that was the key, right? That you can unlock time with your family and also diversify your wealth without having to feel tied to all of the restrictions that especially California is putting on a lot of landlords, the rent control, the challenges with insurance, and finally be able to retire from that wealth that you built and preserve that capital, and then also be able to set it up for the next generation to come with passive cash flow. And so that's what we're about, is to unlock those kind of freedoms. And I'll also tell you one more story, and this has to do with a client who is an entrepreneur. And his name is Shay. And Shay sold a business, and for him, he wasn't ready to be retired. And so he looked at the Deferred Sales Trust not as a retirement vehicle, but as an opportunity to fund his next business venture. And so he sold a business in Alabama, and he started to build multifamily properties, 72 units in Tennessee. And so for him, the trust became a joint venture partner with him. So he wasn't capped on the promissory note, and he was able to fund his business venture, all tax deferred with the new depreciation schedule. And that's a huge statement, but I say that because the entrepreneur might be listening and they might be saying, is this just for the retiree? And it's not. It's also for the entrepreneur who wants optimal timing and wants to switch out of businesses to real estate, or real estate into business, or public or private stock into other investments. So it can be for the entrepreneur, it can be for the person who wants to retire, but ultimately it's going to unlock that freedom that our clients are looking for.
Yes, and I mean, DST, Deferred Sales Trust, there's a track record of this out on the marketplace, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Close to 30 years now, thousands and thousands of closes,
okay.
Billions and billions and billions of assets use it over the years. The biggest thing is the IRS track record, though, because anyone can have a strategy, and we like to say that every strategy works, Kevin, until it gets audited.
Right.
But this strategy has been tested over 24 times and has what's called a no change, no findings, successful track record.
That's what we love. No change from the IRS.
No change, no findings. So it's a perfect track record. We also provide lifetime audit defense, because just as important as you doing the strategy correctly and implementing it correctly,
right,
it's the team to be able to defend should the IRS come knocking. Yeah, and Kevin, on the legality part, right? I think sometimes we hear these strategies, and a lot of times we check with the CPA, we check with the people that we work with, and we have those trusted relationships. But sometimes getting outside of that to find out new ideas is a great way to innovate on anything we're doing.
Yes.
So I want to tell you a story about David Young. And David Young ran with a guy named Bill Gross, and they built PIMCO about 20 years ago from 80 billion to 1.2 trillion.
Yes.
Very well respected, and about 5 guys. Well, you can imagine these guys manage some of the biggest wealth in the world. And they get approached with strategies all the time that people want to sell to them so they can sell to their clients, tax strategies. Well, about 6 years ago, David and 5 of the guys got together and they looked at the Deferred Sales Trust, but they didn't look at it just quickly. They looked at it for 2 years.
Wow.
And during this 2-year due diligence, they found that number 1, it had been tested, tried with the IRS. Number 2, their tax attorney signed the NDAs and went through everything. But number 3, the most important part, is they went all in with us. And so they're part of our inner circle to manage wealth for our clients. And we think that speaks volumes, because when you have someone that's so trusted and respected, who've done an extensive due diligence, it's not just the theory or the idea of the strategy, but it's a world-class team that's put in the time and the effort to get comfortable with it. And they can manage wealth with our clients with the Deferred Sales Trust.
Fantastic. How does it work exactly?
Yeah, and so imagine you're selling a hotel building for $10 million, and you owe, let's say, $3 million of tax because your basis is 0.
Okay.
Instead of selling directly to a buyer and incurring that tax, what you can do is you can set up a trust, and this trust would first buy your asset for the same price you're selling it to the buyer, and the cash ends up in the trust, and you get a promissory note. So you're changing your ownership hat to the lendership hat, and when you do that, you have all the flexibility to do a lot with the wealth.
So Brett, thank you for being here today. Awesome answers. And I just want to make sure that you go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com to get started. Thank you.